Welcome to One World Today. I'm Sophia, your pilot into the universe of Chinese. Let's continue unpack some classical China era characters. Di is today's character. So we have came across guo, nation. Now we're talking about the land. Land is more grounding because nation is artificially built, right? It's the ruler based on who owns and rules over this piece of land. And then we have this regime kind of concept of 国. But land has always been there. Whoever comes and goes. And so, in that sense, land and people are separable. Land and the political structure on top of the land are separable. So, land itself is has always been there before we even roam over that land. And by the way, Chinese Taoism concept, which I'm going to talk about in a while, is freedom to roam the land. That's one of the Taoism key concept is like you're not bound by any point on the land. You have the freedom to roam. And that in ancient time is a radical idea because for the political system built on top of this land, they bound everybody on their land, and you don't have the freedom to move at all, unlike today. So that used to be how it's governed, and still governed today by CCP China, that people are bound by their land. I experienced such difficulty moving from different cities because you have to have the city's residents. Imagine within a country, you have to have your residents established to for you to enjoy any of the public service, which is kind of already minimum. But for your kids to go to school in a certain, I guess, first tier or whatever tier city, you have to have your residents in there. So that's already show the friction the government shows are created for people so that they are bound still to today to their land. Okay, so that's my rant of the day. D. We created the D concept with a very poetic idea. Hear me out. The left side means soil because land is made of soil. What's on that piece of land? The material of the land is soil. How we experience show soil concept, which very simple. Two horizontal lines with one vertical line, and you have to notice here, this vertical line doesn't go through the second horizontal line. Has to be like that, otherwise people don't know what that word is. Okay, 土 is the soil symbol. And the soil symbol is made of the concept of the first horizontal line is a ground. The vertical line is some sort of plant growing in the ground. And you can see, like Chinese have this cross-sectional view. We see things from a cross-sectional view cut through the land. And so we see both above the land and below the land. No, sorry, above the ground. The horizontal line is the ground. So above and below, we have this laser view, not laser, like X-ray view of normally we just exist. Humans, our visions stop to the ground level. You cannot see deeper than the land, right? But somehow the language creators conceptualize that we want to create a soil icon with a cross-sectional cut through the ground level so that you see both above and below the ground. And then the second horizontal line is an abstract indicator to show here is what we're talking about. That means the surroundings of the root of this plant. That is logically soil and made of soil and the birthplace of everything. I guess this with many, many, many different cultures, Aboriginal cultures. I mean, from the Western point of view, everything else becomes Aboriginal cultures that they value their land. Um, I guess I cannot speak on behalf of many, many Aboriginal cultures, but from the Chinese point of view, what land is the birthplace of things. We all grow from this place. We feed on this land. And so land is kind of mother to us, right? It's kind of like a Mother Earth all right? Motherland. And so this motherhood is expressed by the birth canals of a female. So this is a genital view of a female. I know as a contemporary 21st century, I still have this cultural bound on me. Like, I cannot really talk about the female genitals on YouTube, right? But here is not a cross-sectional view, but it's almost like your OB/GYN view of female reproductive organ exposed. So I guess you can imagine how abstract, but at the same time, very accurately pinned down by language creators to construct a female reproduction look like this from the outside. And that symbolize that, I guess, the worship or the respect or the awareness of our relationship to the land. Like we all came out of that birth canal. And this is the land. Land means not only made of soil, but what it means to humans, to civilization is a birthplace. I find it very poetic. I love it. All right. 地，大地, big land, simply is Chinese way to say how grand the land can be, as far as you can see. So that's 大地. And when we say 大地, it's kind of a poetic way because nowadays most of us are cooped in the city and we can hardly see the full horizon at all. It's a fractured through the cityscape. So when you say 大地, you're going outside the city, that you can see horizon to horizon. And that's the sense of what 大地 looks like. We only see lots or plots or parking lots in the cities, right? But the 大地, when we say that, you're outside there. You're unbounded by the fractured land that city planners so carefully choreographed. Okay, 地貌, land look. What do you think is the English expression for that? Land look. It's landscape, making sense, right? And Chinese use look. It's kind of a visually, spatially detectable things, kind of like a topography of the land. And of course, the plants grow on top of that, everything visually detectable. It talks more about the shape and the look of things. So it's more a spatial sense. So that's landscape equivalent. 心地, heartland. I know in English we have heartland. And when I was making the slide, it keeps trying to combine heartland into one word because that's an English concept. But Chinese is totally different. When we say heartland, we're not talking about the land. We're talking about the heart. And because Chinese have the habit of naming or expressing the thing we're talking about first, and then the location in relative to this thing next. So like at the bottom of my heart, that's the English expression, right? And then Chinese will say heart bottom. Okay, so heartland is kind of like equivalent to heart bottom. It's like you go to the ground level of that heart. So 心地, we're talking about peel away the facade of that person. And when you examine the intention, I guess, the core or the ground level of that heart, then you will find a contrast between the appearance and the intention, I guess, the presentation and the intention. That tension is expressed by 心地. So there we go, land, and somebody is harvesting. And this is just a testimony to yes, we are raised on this land and we are all born from this land. And the land is this renewable, reproductive place that we all come from. And Chinese acknowledge that by putting a female genital next to the soil to create the concept of land. All right, thank you very much for your time. See you another time.